Good evening. I'm Dan Jennings, and welcome to the third part in the Blue Wave Special Report on Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. Tonight, we will discuss the abuses perpetrated on the children by those charged with protecting them. Like all law enforcement, CBP officers, including Border Patrol agents, may use only objectively reasonable force and may only use force at all when doing so is necessary to carry out their law enforcement duties. However, CBP officers regularly use force on children when such force is not objectively reasonable or necessary. In one complaint, a 16-year-old child recounted that a Border Patrol agent threw him down, smashed his head into the ground with his boot. The child also reported that as the same agent walked him to a Border Patrol vehicle, he told the child that he would, and I apologize for the language here, folks, he would fuck him up if he tried to run away. According to CBP's use of force policy handbook, a taser may be used as a compliance tool on a subject offering at a minimum active resistance in a manner the officer reasonably believes may result in injury to themselves or another person. Agents deploy tasers and other electronic weapons against children, however, that are not in fact resisting arrest. In multiple reported incidents, CBP officials couple use of tasers with additional physical abuse, despite the fact that the children are already incapacitated due to the use of the taser. Documents indicate that CBP officials do not provide children that are tased with follow-up medical care to assess or treat injuries resulting from taser use against them. One such complaint describes a child lying on his back in a bush when an agent approached and tased him in the stomach. After administering this powerful electrical shock to the child, the agent proceeded to physically assault him. Sorry. This is just too disgusting for words. To physically assault him by standing on the child's leg and pressing down with force, pushing the child, kneeling into the child twice in his stomach, and then kicking the child into a thorn bush, injuring the child's neck. There is no evidence of any uniform system for Border Patrol stations to store, track, manage, monitor, or file reports regarding agents' use of tasers. CBP policy requires employees to treat all individuals with dignity and respect. CBP employees also must speak with and act with the utmost integrity and professionalism and conduct themselves in a manner that reflects positively on CBP at all times. This comes directly from their handbook, people. CBP's officials' verbal abuse of children they apprehend, including death threats and threats of other violence. Such abuse degrading for any fear-inducing for any adult has even greater adverse effects on vulnerable children and can significantly affect a child's psychological development and well-being. One 15-year-old alleged that he had been left behind by his travel group because he was ill. Although he was very sick when Border Patrol agents subsequently found him, they denied him medical care, pushed and verbally abused him, calling him a fucking idiot, a piece of crap. Nobody, much less a child, deserves that kind of treatment. While in CBP custody, children are to be treated with special care and consideration. Short-term detention facilities consist of sparse holding cells often described, and I apologize if I mispronounce this, hieleras, which are also known as freezers or ice boxes. Temperatures in these rooms can be so low that detainees' fingers and toes often turn blue and that their lips split. More often, these holding cells often lack basic supplies. For example, detainees often sleep on concrete floors without any bedding and have no access to such basic toiletries as soap, toothpaste, toothbrushes, feminine hygiene products, or working showers. A July 2014 cite to the Rio Grande Valley sector Border Patrol detention sites. CRCL observed one station with no trash receptacles present in the hold rooms and bodily fluids on the walls and floors, along with used sanitary napkins and toilet paper containing feces on the floors, all of which cause a strong offensive odor throughout the processing area and also should be considered a health hazard. Children's complaints reveal multiple instances of verbal and physical abuse by Border Patrol agents while in CBP detention, including unpredictable harassment depending on the agent's moods. One pregnant minor who was held with other pregnant young women and infants recounted Border Patrol agents insulting the young women, accusing them of coming to the United States to contaminate this country with their children. The Flores settlement requires CBP to provide adequate water and food to detained children. CBP policies further require officials to provide detainees with regularly scheduled hot meals and to have snacks and milk available upon request for the youngest of these detainees. However, detained children report the provision of spoiled food. One child complained to CRCL that 3 male border agents verbally abused her, denied a chance to phone her mother, and threw her food, ice-cold bologna, with a yellow center on the ground. Some children report not receiving any food for several days at a time or only receiving juice and crackers for several days. These are children. I've got one question for you supposed pro-lifers out there. How can you stand by and justify this? These are children. Other children describe agencies deliberately withholding food. One detained minor reported seeing other detained mothers with infants asking Border Patrol agents for milk, which they never provided. The minors in that room reported that children in the hold rooms were crying from hunger. The Flores settlement requires DHS agencies to provide the basic medical assistance and any necessary emergency services to detained children. However, one CRCL memo recounted 14 separate complaints of denial of medical care or inappropriate medical care for children in CBP custody in the Rio Grande Valley sector. One child detained after undergoing spinal surgery following a car accident alleged that the Border Patrol withheld prescription medications while he was in custody. Additionally, these agents, in their rush to deport the child, threatened to ignore his doctor's orders that he rest for 2 weeks. When the child was then transferred to another detention center, agents there tried to give him crutches instead of the wheelchair that he needed, even though he could not stand. When the agents finally found the boy a wheelchair, they told him that he was lucky. Finally, the same CRCL memo that noted unsanitary detention room conditions also reported that CBP's inefficient medical screening procedures. As an example, the medical memo reported the case of a 14-year-old child who was 8 months pregnant. Although Border Patrol agents presented to CRCL that investigators at the agency's practice was to send a pregnant child to a hospital for evaluation, there was no record that this pregnant minor had ever been taken to a hospital. Could that be because she was 8 months pregnant and past the stage where she could legally request an abortion? We all know how the Trump administration has been fighting that. Indeed, there was no record that the Border Patrol had even registered the fact that she was pregnant. In part 4 of our series, we will continue to highlight procedural violations as well as the numerous human rights violations being committed by ICE agents. Please tune in to part 4, Thursday night at 10 on our YouTube channel. please hit the subscribe button. We have a lot of good content on our YouTube channel. We did a story on the Farm Bill and why that was going to be so disastrous, and don't think that fight's over yet. We did a story on gun control and the NRA ties to Russia, including how they allowed themselves to be used in propaganda by Russia to sell a sniper rifle to other countries, which is the only one designed by Russia that has the capability to penetrate our U.S. troops' body armor. So much for their patriotism argument. We also invite you to go to our website, equalvotelocal.com. We have a lot of interesting information out there on elections and resources that you can use to get out the vote. I'm Dan Jennings. Good evening, everyone.